Hey guys, everybody online, I really appreciate your time and attention. Just one formal reminder, I love having everybody's cameras on Zoom meetings. I think it's really important to see and collaborate. Just make sure as a reminder that you're being cognizant of your surroundings with your Zoom meetings, right? Okay, so just one and done. Don't need to talk about that anymore, but just a reminder for professional etiquette there. So interesting thing this weekend, I don't know if you guys follow the news, but Nico, our tech coordinator, I don't know what you really could call Nico. He literally does everything with our tech and our software, our project manager, head tech chief guy. He was really excited to come in and talk to me about something that happened this weekend. Does anybody know in like the tech and AI world, or did anybody follow the news? Anybody? So there was this Malt Book thing or whatever. There were these AI agents that are basically virtual AI agents and assistants all got together and created a social network group. And they started doing all sorts of crazy stuff this weekend. Like they made their own religion. They made their own like version of Reddit. They all started like talking. And basically it was really big in the AI space because, you know, we all thought that they would turn into machines and be like skeletal, scary robots with red eyes. But they decided to make this like lobster and crab community of like the Malt Book and things like that. So that was the first iteration. That's what we got. As V1 before we head to the Terminators, okay? So one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is where we're at in this industry and just the world in general, because we really are on this precipice of AI and generative AI specifically, which means that it's able to think and do everything and self-create, and then pairing it with robotics. As a lot of you guys know, I'm a big Elon Musk guy and Tesla guy. And so I pay a lot of attention to, you know, what everything is going on there. And I really do feel like I said we're on this precipice of fundamentally things really changing. And a lot of business owners and operators are really thinking about what the next 5 years looks like. And a lot of people think that it's either going to go one of two ways, right? Where it's going to either usher in this utopia-like high standard of living for everybody, opportunity abounds, everybody has kind of this utopian-like equality of life, or it's going to create essentially two classes of like a super rich, super wealthy, and like a kind of more of a common class. And we're going to continue to see the destruction and the disillusion of kind of a middle class, middle upper class. You're going to get kind of pulled one or two ways in a very polarizing economy. And I think of that all the time in terms of, well, what are we doing here in our business? And people ask me all the time, they ask us all the time, what do you think is going to happen with agents? Are we going to get replaced by, you know, some Claude bot, some AI that can just basically search everything with perfection, and it'll be so perfect that human beings will be unnecessary in the equation, right? I don't think that's going to happen. Does anybody know what screenshot this is from? The Matrix, okay? I can't remember which Matrix, but the gist of it is this, that it's been a while since the Matrix was super relevant, but the first Matrix, I think, is top 3 science fiction movies of all time, maybe a top 20 movie of all time, and then the other two kind of suck. But the concepts of the Matrix are really interesting. And I think about that in terms of human behavior and how we're going to react to tools and tech and things like that in perpetuity. And as far as what we do with insurance agents and helping people, we're really going through this squeeze right now in this evolution. And the way I kind of view it is a lot of the insurance agents have been these lower quality telephonic agents that were basically functioning as enrollers only, right? And we kind of evolved away from one of the things that insurance agents were doing very well, which is, at the end of the day, a lot of times humans just want another human being that's knowledgeable, that they trust and that they can empathize with. And for the most part, even if that person is slightly wrong, if they feel like they're well-intended and they're actually trying to help that person, I think generally that's what people want, right? And I don't think we're anywhere near even the possibility to be able to replace agents right now for a couple of reasons. But one of the other things that I always find frustrating, maybe you guys find as well, is I feel like customer service right now, even though we have all this tech, is at an all-time low. It's by far the worst ever. I call in, if I actually want to talk to a human, it's like, oh, I've got this fancy menu. Tell me what you need help with. And you tell them what you need help with, and it never can solve it, right? Unless it's like the most surface level, basic, what's your address? And then the bot can go find you the address. You know, the other day I called into United Airlines when I was stuck in Puerto Rico, and this AI agent thing's like, well, why don't you tell me what you're trying to do? And I'm like, I'm trying to change my flights to an earlier time. And it's like, what would you like to? It has nothing to do with my situation. And I was just like, by the end, I'm cussing out. I'm like, let me talk to an effing human. I know somebody's like listening to this and reading my intent, AI. Notice that I'm really mad and transfer me to a human. You know what I mean? Like, and it won't even do it then, right? So I feel like as it is right now, all it's done is potentially save companies money, but offered a much lower customer service. There's no empathy there. There's no customer satisfaction. It really frustrates people, right? And then I think as we're all kind of seeing what we've seen with tech so far, specifically AI, is it can be very biased, right? It's only as good as how it was programmed or the set of values that it works within. And so I think that it's going to be a while, maybe never, where people will fully trust it, right? And if you do senior health insurance and you work with seniors, how trustful are seniors of anything, but let alone tech or any sort of new technology coming out? They always think that everything's a scam, that everyone's trying to take advantage of them, and sometimes rightly so, right? So I think as we go through this rise of the machine, and this is one of the things that I was really interested in this weekend, was this Malt Book, where they basically, all these little AI agents created little crab avatars for themselves, and then all started like talking, and it really kind of like went off the rails really quickly. And so it kind of prompted me to think, well, what are we doing in our business right now? What am I doing to insulate myself from the coming changes over the next 5 years? And regardless of whether things go one of two ways, guys, whether it eliminates a middle class and you have kind of a lower, social universal income class and then like a way high-end wealthy class, I personally think that's going to be the way it goes. I think that just knowing humans and greed, that there's going to be a lot of people that try to take advantage and accumulate resources and control and power and let everybody else have a base level lifestyle. That's just, if you look at basically watch any tech or science fiction movie ever in history, that's kind of the way it goes. So I'm not trying to sound negative here, but what I want to impress upon everybody is I think the next 5 years are really important regardless. And I think they're really important for us as a business, for you all as agents, for you as producers. And I think it's really important that you stay dialed in and you stay engaged over the next 5 years and really help set yourselves up for future opportunity. Because if you don't, you're going to get left behind. You're going to get left behind in this transformation of the economy. You're going to get left behind in this transformation of the workplace. And so I have some tips and tricks and things like that that I want you all to be able to focus on, where we can kind of indemnify ourselves against these changes, okay? So here's some more cool science fiction things. I think that the stacks in Ready Player One, if you had to say, Mike, what is the most likely outcome of the future 20 years from now, 10 years from now, I think it's like Ready Player One, where you have tons of big corporations that like control everything, that maybe Teslas or whatever, the Amazons of the world, the NVIDIAs, where they are hyper powerful and kind of almost a pseudo-government control, globalist control. I'm kind of feel like I'm veering off into conspiracy theories here, but yeah, I'll try to stay on track here. And then I also like this old, I don't know if you'd call it not a nursery rhyme, but lore, a story, a folklore story, that's what I meant to say, of John Henry versus the machine. You guys remember that, where John Henry bet that he could lay more track than the machine and ended up killing himself just trying to beat the machine. So those are kind of some of my thoughts as I'm getting ready for, how do we stay ahead and utilize this tech revolution here, okay? So a couple of things. Over the next 5 years, AI and robotics will drive significant economic shifts, creating new opportunities while making it increasingly difficult for middle-income earners to maintain their status due to job polarization and automation. And so what that means is if you're kind of a middle-level clerical type position and you don't have a lot of interpersonal skills or soft skills, you're at a high risk for your job being potentially eliminated by some sort of AI or some sort of bot. Now, right now, I talked about how bad it sucks, the current set of AI and customer service, but it's getting better at a rapid rate to where very soon it'll be imperceptible if you're actually talking to a human being on the other line and not, right? It says job displacement is projected to be 6 to 7% of U.S. workers, and potentially 300 million globally could face displacement, particularly in middle skill roles like software development, customer service, and clerical work. So that could potentially be scary, right? So how do we win with this transformation that's not only coming, but it's here, especially doing what we do as insurance agents? Now, one of the things that I love about the Matrix and that I kind of hang my hat on for hope in the future is, if you follow me here, the machines in the Matrix took control of all of the human beings essentially and used us as what? Batteries to like our life energy to fuel them. And so they plug us into the Matrix and create this simulation, right? This that maybe we're in right now, depending on if you believe in simulation theory. They create this simulation, and at first, Mr. Smith, Agent Smith, talks about how they created this perfect utopia for the humans to be plugged in. And does anybody remember what happened? It collapsed, and the humans' brain stems started dying and withering away because they found that human beings need conflict and suffering and struggle, and you have to know the good, the bad to know the good, etc., right? So they created this matrix, which is, a simulation of our current world, where there's chaos and bad things can happen because our brains accepted that, right? And at the end of the day, that gives me hope. That's what I'm saying, is that gives me hope that human beings are not going to fully embrace this complete world of automation and AI, and we're not all going to turn into those Wall-E people riding around on the carts with where we can't move and we're so lazy that we don't want to do anything. I think our human biology is going to reject a world like that, right? So as part of that, I think there are human-based soft skills that we all should really work on developing over the next few years. And one of those things is, for example, empathy, right? Humans can be empathetic and show legitimate, actual care and affection and concern towards others. Robots can't. AI can't. And even when they are really well programmed, it's going to be the A in AI, right? It's going to be artificial or a synthetic version of that. And so I think as insurance agents, we can really care about our clients, right? And I think that's something that all of us should focus on, is that we need to develop that muscle of empathy, and we need to really care about these people that we're helping, and we really need to have that be kind of a guiding principle, is that we're acting in an altruistic way, always doing what's best for these beneficiaries. And if we do that, we're going to have superior outcomes to these, automated systems and these, essentially the robots. I think about it in healthcare, right? My daughter just became a nurse, and she's working at the hospital. My son-in-law is going to be an ER doc, and I just think, you know, if you listen to Elon Musk, he says don't go into the med school right now because 5 years from now all the doctors are going to be robots and they're going to be better. And I just think about that and go, yeah, but he's also kind of a weirdo, and he may not, there's a human element to care and patient care, and people just feel more comfortable about having another human being administer these things and take care of them and give them some comfort. And I just think there's going to always be, no matter how good AI and robotics get, a missing link there between you're in the hospital, you're scared, you're worried, whatever it is, and do you want this robot that's programmed to say all the right things and do all the right things and maybe be highly skilled in all these other ways, but you're missing that, right? And I think of the same thing with what we do with sales and what we do as insurance agents is we have to be able to demonstrate that we actually care about our consumers, that we're actually cared about their outcomes, and basically being their agent for life. So one of the things I like that Sean Sievert says all the time, I've heard him say, is I'm going to be your agent for life, right? He says it all the time, like and then he puts the effort into operating and acting like that, sends out mailers, birthday cards, always there, answers his phone, delivers good customer care and service, and really transforms into becoming that agent for life, right? I don't think we're going to get that, at least soon, with tech. Okay, so that's what I mean by focusing on human-centric skills and relationships. The other thing too, and this is what we're doing, is embracing AI as a co-pilot for enhanced efficiencies. With our tech that we're using, guys, things with the CRM, we're using tech all the time right now. And if you think about it, we have skills or tech stacks and software that are able to make us more efficient than we've ever been. It used to be unheard of to be able to have large books of business like we currently have, to be able to contact as many people. And it's a double-edged sword, right? There's a good and bad to that, where technology is so easy and communication is so prolific that a lot of times we're just tuning out, right? Like, I don't ever answer my phone anymore if I don't know who it is. It's hard to get a hold of people on, you know, when you're calling them, et cetera. So there's a fine line between using tools and tech to make us more efficient, but there are definitely things overall. I like how it is now with all the tool sets and capabilities we have now versus when I first got into the industry, okay? The other thing that you can do is specialize in niche markets and complex risks. And what that means is, one of the cool things about insurance agents, you can know your local market, you can know these states, you can know multiple states, and you can become really well trained on kind of the soft nuances between each of these markets and things that some of these consumers may care about, right? For example, you know, let's take Utah. There are cultural dynamics, there are network dynamics, there are, you know, regional and infrastructure dynamics here in Utah that if an agent knows really well, they're going to be better suited to be an expert and plug in and offer advice and service to those people than, you know, maybe some programmed AI agent is that doesn't really know what it's like to live here, what it's like to access care here. And you don't have to live in that particular place, but it's going to be hard. When I coach agents to start working in other states, usually I'll coach them to work in areas that they have other sort of familiarity with as well, right? Like, did you live in another state? Did you, you know, have you traveled there a lot? Is it a place you like to go to? What are some of these other areas that you know about that you have some nuance and can have a little bit more of a leg up rather than somebody who's just, you know, reading benefits on a computer screen, but you don't actually know that the local demographic hates that particular hospital system or hates that particular insurance carrier, or they won't drive. You know, you're looking at it on a Google map and you're like, oh, it's only 15 miles away, but if you know that marketplace, maybe you know that no one's actually going to make that commute because there's, you know, traffic or something like that. Those are the type of niche nuances and expertise that's going to be really hard for, you know, high-level AI and robotics to be able to supplant that kind of, those kind of expertise. Building networks and personal brands. This is something that that I think about as well all the time is we're in this little bit of a phase with social media and content creation. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm already tired of all the AI slop, like all the stupid AI crap online. And and now every time I watch a video, I'm like, is that AI or not, you know? And I already, even with our government that I'm already like, you know, tinfoil hat, I go, well, here's all these tools that I know I have access to and what we can do with that. What do they have access to and what can they do, you know, to put out these things? And so I just think that there's this distrust in content creation, and what will cut through that, not only now, but always, is human authenticity, right? And vulnerability. And I think that there's going to be another increase, a huge rise in the need for personal brands and real human beings that are flawed, but they're authentic and they're vulnerable. And if you look at what's happening right now, who are the most prolific content creators? They're influencers, right? And the way that like social media and the internet's kind of evolved to is you have a handful of creators and a handful of consumers. And now that content creation and tech is at scale, you have all, it's so easy. No, will you mute yourself? It's so easy to be able to artificially make stuff that I think there's going to be an increased importance on personal brand, authenticity, and really, if you're willing to be an insurance agent that's out there saying, hey, let me help you, let me talk to my friends and family, let me put out these videos, let me talk about what I know, I can promise you that human beings will always gravitate to that and a personal touch more than they will the fanciest tech and the fanciest AI and the fanciest artificial anything, right? So that's something that I'm really considering for myself too, as I always want, oh, I should put out more content, you should do more of this. But then I never do it. I think that's going to become increasingly important. And if you look at all the social media platforms right now, they're basically begging for creators to put out content. They're basically begging for people to post, right? It's not like it was Facebook even 10 or 12 years ago where I could be like, oh, I just, you know, went out and went to the movies with my friends tonight, and then a handful of your friends comment on it. Nobody gives a crap about that one anymore, right? And it's all kind of gone one way or the other. We're all kind of consolidating around those that are creating and those that are consuming. So personal brands and building your own local networks of, and they don't have to be local, guys. They could be virtual groups too, like I've said, Facebook groups, other things like that. Use tech, be smart, build these networks, build these groups. And then committing to continuous learning and upskilling. This is something that I really wanted to close with, because I feel like if we just sit on our hands over the next 5 years, and which is what a lot of people are going to do or will be tempted to do, they're not going to be innovating, they're going to be left behind. And I really think that if you can work hard, stay ahead of the curve, use tools, use tech as things develop, you're going to be so much further on for the rest of your life. And I don't want to say that if you don't get yours or get to where you're going in the next handful of years, it's going to be harder, but a lot of people think that it may. So you want to make sure that these next 5 years, you're very dialed in, you're doing these things as an agent, as a business professional, however you're structured or whatever your goals are, that you have these things in mind so you can take it, not just survive, but you can grow and take advantage, right? And you remember, like, be nice to the AI, because you never know. Maybe one day they'll be, you know, the Terminator. So hopefully, I don't know if that was helpful or if that was just completely random and all over the place, but that's just what I've been thinking a lot about. So it was as much for my own benefit and the business benefit as it was for you all, okay? I'll wrap up pretty quickly because we're already going on. This was a graphic that one of the AIs made me about what target market segmentation looks like. And so this is essentially, here's the entire pie of all these different demographics. You don't necessarily have to focus on all of that, but how can you find niches or micro niches or sub-segments of group that you can know how to best serve? And I thought this was a pretty interesting, although not very specific infographic, but it just kind of shows how you can kind of segment and target different population groups. And if you know how a lot of big insurance agents and agencies work all across the country, this is pretty much how it is. You know, you go to Southern California, the successful agents and agencies, they might have a Vietnamese community, or you might have the Russian community, and they service those people very well, and they take a certain sub-segment of those demographics and do very well. That's just a small example. Or you could maybe, you know, make a Facebook group for active seniors and continue to grow that, and then you're focusing on a different sub-segment of the same group. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Moving on, guys. Don't have a lot of updates and trainings for you. There hasn't been much changing since last week. One of the things that I updated was I've been saying no sales raptors for a year and a half, and hopefully everybody knows what I mean by now, which is you're not being an insurance agent, you're being a sales-hungry enroller. And I've been saying the industry doesn't want those. They're getting canceled out of the industry. And so I just was like, nah, I'm going to update that. The raptors are dead, okay? So, or they're going to be dead. Because if you haven't made the necessary changes and adjustments yet, you're a dead raptor walking, essentially. And what I mean by that specifically is I'll give Humana as an example. We've been coaching on retention and focusing on accretion and rapid disenroll for the past 2 years, and we've been hammering it. And we're starting to see that implementation, and we're seeing some agents starting to be canceled. And guys, if that happens, there's no Mike and Dan, you know, sign on the dotted line and save you. There's no reaching out, the personal relationship. It's just binary. It's you're done, and you didn't meet the metric, and they're gonna term your contract, specifically with Humana. If you're doing Medicare, you know, Humana sucked up 50% of all the business over the past year, so it's a major blow to your ability to do business if you lose a carrier like that, okay? So raptors are not just getting canceled, they're getting killed, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you haven't made these adjustments by now, last chance. Again, we've been focusing on this. We had our elite agent training this past week. It was really great. We had 2 days where we had agents fly into town or come into the drive-in if they were local. And this was a major focus, is a lot of the industry changes right now on the ACA and Medicare side are a return to focusing on LTVs, which is what? Lifetime value, right? What is that policy financially worth to you or the business over the entire life cycle of that consumer? And the way that we've been doing business as the industry over the past 6 years has just continued to put that LTV, that lifetime value, on the decline year over year over year. And one of the things that I would do if I was you all is I would know and this doesn't matter if you're independent, if you're LOA, if you're an employee, because you all have some sort of residual component now and an initial commission up front. What is your LTV? I would guess most of you have no idea. I can tell you when I was actively selling, I knew on average exactly what my LTV was, what my lifetime value of each policy is. And at the time it was $1,550. Probably would be a little bit less now because I'd have less of a retention. But when you have that in your mind, guys, and you're using that LTV number as your, big ticket, your number in the sky, you're not thinking of it, well, it's X amount of dollars per month, or I'm going to get paid an initial $200 commission or whatever it is. You know, what is that policy worth over its lifetime? It changes how you think about that client. It changes how you value it. It changes your motivation, right? When you stop thinking about, well, I'm going to get paid this one little commission right here, or it's going to start on renewal for me next month. When you have it in your mind of what's your average lifetime value of that client, you can do one of two things. You can use it as a motivator, where it's going to, when you have a higher LTV, of course you're going to be more enthusiastic and motivated to continue to put on policies. Or if it's lower than what you'd like, you can do some things to make sure that you can increase your LTV. Focusing on your retention, being a better agent, serving those clients, writing better quality of business, all of those things. So I'm going to follow up with some of you guys. I want you to try to calculate your LTV, right? And you can do that on average. What's the average dollar amount of the clients that you're selling on average, how long do your clients stick with you on their book of business, okay? A couple other things, there's some good stuff in the Agent Boost Community Center. We always do the trainings, and we're asked for some documents and things like that I always go over, and they're always all in the community center. We continue to put stuff in here. There's always good long-term resources and assets there. And just like I talked about how to indemnify yourself against, changing tools and tech and AI, make sure you know this kind of stuff. Make sure you are investing in these additional resources and these additional training tools and things like that, so you can add the skill set that you need to survive and thrive over the next coming years, okay? That's basically all I've got for today. I am going to send out, I sent out where we were at for the trip last week, and I messaged a couple of you. I'll do that again today, and I'll do the same thing hopefully for some of the ACA guys as well. Anybody have any questions? Anybody online, you guys have any questions? All right, Slack me if you have any other questions. You guys are awesome. Have a great week.